Likutei Torah, Parshas Behar, page Mem Aleph. Now the Rebbe starts off the Maimer Shabsesi Tishmeiru Mikdashi Tiro. He quotes the argument between Bavli and Yerushalmi whether the Jews have to keep one Shabbos. In Bavli it says two Shabbosim. Yerushalmi says one Shabbos, and it says it's not really an argument because there's two levels of Shabbos within every Shabbos. And he says Shabbos is a level of Aliyah Sa'elamis. Hashem stopped creating, and therefore everything goes up back to the source. And he says the Shabbos during the week is the level of Tefillah. We have to understand, what does it mean that Shabbos there's Aliyah Sa'elamis when Malach Halar is created? Hashem's all over the place. If Hashem's all over the place, I mean, what do you get elevated? So he says, why doesn't the Neshama come down? So he says that the Neshamas originate in Machshava. Everything in the world is Dibur. And even Dibur, one word compared to the world, is all nothing. This is even higher. This is the level of Machshava, Levush HaPnimi. Okay? Therefore, the Nefesh, which comes to Machshava, is eternal, Nitzchis, and the other end, the world, which came from Dibur, even the Malachim, who came from Dibur, is eventually stops being. And he says, second column, okay, 5 lines in the top of the second column, Mem Aleph. Why eventually will the Malachim and the world cease to exist? Their creation comes in the level of Dibur. Yesh Eis Lashes, like it says, Eis Ledabed. Just like Shlomo Melech says in Kehelis, there's a time to speak, there's a time to be quiet. So now there's a time to speak, there's a world. Time to be quiet, there's no world. Mashiach and Neshamas fish all of Machshava. Okay, this is where we're up to now. K'mayim Razal, like the Chazal say in Medrash, Al Pasik Imamah Melech Memelachtei. Yeshvu Sham, together with the king and his work. They'll sit there. The Medrash says, what does that mean? Im Melech Malchei Amlochim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yeshvu Neshama Shel Tzadikim. Hashem at the beginning of creation sat down, so to speak, with the nefashos of tzaddikim, shebehem nimlach HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that Hashem decided to create the world. Okay, like the Lashon Chassidus always brings out of this medrash, shebami nimlach, with whom did Hashem decide to create the world? B'nishmasem shel tzaddikim. Now, obviously, it doesn't mean that Hashem had a board meeting. Hashem didn't have any boards. What it means is that for what purpose did Hashem create the world? For neshamas of tzaddikim. V'gam lachein hem nitzchim. Therefore, neshamas are eternal. Ki machshavi gam kin tmidis. Okay, the machshavi is like we learned yesterday. You can't stop thinking. Because Machshava is so close to the Nefesh, it always works. And Seichel Machshavim Treire and the Lame is Parshin are two friends that are inseparable. Kahadin Kamsa. Kamsa is either a turtle or a snail, whichever way you look at it. The Levush Minei Obey, the garment of the covering of the turtle or the snail is part of the snail. It's not a separate thing. So therefore, they're inseparable. Machshava and Seichel, meaning you're always thinking. Even if you're a fool, you're always thinking. But okay, so he says, Neshamas are eternal because they come from Machshava thought. Everything else is created with Dibur, so therefore there's a time to speak, there's a time not to speak, so that eventually it will cease to exist. But in the Neshamas but Neshamas are also different levels, meaning and he says, this is from Tanya, Dr. Rebbe wrote both books. It says, how many Neshamas are there? So you know there's 600,000 Jews left Egypt, there's 600,000 general Neshamas. And each one of those neshamas are divided also into 600,000. So how many neshamas are there? 600,000 times 600,000, like 360 billion, whatever it is. What do they correspond with? These 600,000 neshamas correspond with Samach Reis Esis Torah. It says the word Yisrael, Yud, Shin, Reish, Aleph, Lamed, stand for Yesh, Shishim, Ribui, Esis Torah. The 600, and Al Rebbe right away says, Av Shebetera a Nimtza Samach Reis Esis. There's only like 305,000 plus letters in the Torah. How does it say Shishim Ribui? Hainum Ibn Esis, Hemshech Shem Esis, Aleph, Hey, Vav, Yugra called Nekudis. She'ein B'Ksav, but Yesh and Machshava. Shall come it to Aleph and Chirik is Yud, whatever. Those are the, like he says, the letters of the vowels. Ach Eizem and Nekudis Semeinu Yudua. Okay? So the pearl, it says like this. It's a Megala Mukris, by the way, which is one for the earliest Mukabalim, that says Yisrael stands for Yesh Shishim Yireisis Torah. Even though there's 305,000 plus whatever it is, nevertheless, it says through various different methods, like you said, with the Nekudis and everything else, then there's 600,000 letters. Vimkein Yipole. La Meyardu Neshamas Kol Kach Lamata. Why do the Neshamas come all the way down? What we say is every day, Amisnasim Mimeis Elam, that Hashem is removed from the world. And we say, have mercy on us. What's the mercy that Hashem has on us? By the way, even a Tzaddik Gomor of Tanya also says, Amirachim Racham no Aleinu. Have Rachmanis. I want Rachmanis. He's such holy. The answer is the fact that the Neshama came down into a guf. Shachman is Gedel and Neshamas. Sheyardo. They come from the highest place in Machshava. So why is the neshama? This is Al Rebbe's question. Okay? So the answer is, he says, the whole purpose of the neshama coming down. Okay, so this is all to answer a question that Al Rebbe didn't answer yet. What does it mean? That Shabbos, the world's become elevated. If Hashem's all over, so what do you mean elevated? It's all there. So he says, we understand this by first understanding why the Neshama came down into the world. And one second. Now the Rebbe explains the greatness of the Neshama comes from Machshava, and one with Hashem, and yet it comes down. So why does it come down? What?
You said that Hashem created the world for sake of Neshama outside it.
And Torah.
Was the Torah available then?
Yeah, Torah is even first.
So you look at the Torah, and then he created the world.
Yes. Like we learned, the Medrash, there's a Medrash that says, there's a different Medrashim say different amounts, but the well-known Medrash is, Shiva Dvarim Kadmol Ha'olam. 7 things are there before the world. So Chassidus explains, before the world there was no time. So you can't say before time-wise. What it means is it's greater than the world. Okay? Then the Medrash boils it down to Shtei Dvarim Kadmol Ha'olam. 2 things are there before the world. Torah and Neshamas. How do we know Neshamas are there before the world? Because it says over here this Medrash. Who did Hashem decide to create a world? With Neshamas. That means there are Neshamas there already. Again, not time-wise, but level-wise. And then the Hashem created the world. How do we know Torah is greater than the world? It says, Zayah says, it's Tako B'Raisa Bar Alma. Hashem looked into Torah. It says in Torah, Hashem said, Yehi Or. So, or the Medrash says the same thing in different words. The Medrash says Torah is the blueprints of the world. You have an architect draws the blueprints, and then the contractor actually builds it from the blueprints. So you get the blueprints are there before the world. So Torah is there before the world. So Torah is before the world, greater than world in the Shabbos. Then the Medrash continues, of the 2 which are first, which are greater, in other words. So the Medrash says, because it says in Torah, Daber al Bnei Yisrael, if Torah says, speak to the Yidden, that means it's already Yidden. If Torah is there before Yidden, Torah can't say speak to the Yidden if there's no Jews. So obviously if Torah says, David al B'nai Yisrael, speak to the Jews, that means there's already Jews there. So therefore the Medrash concludes that of the two, Neshamas are even greater than Torah. Which explains when Moshe Rabbeinu by the Egel, coming down with the Luchis and the Jews sinned, right? So one of the two had to go. Either Torah had to go or the Neshamas had to go. Meaning the Jews had to be killed. So what did Moshe Rabbeinu decide? He broke the Luchis. He said if there's one of the two that got to go, let Torah go because the Neshamas are greater. Right? Therefore you have the concept of tshuva and all that. So bottom line is, Torah is there before the greater than world, and the Neshamas are greater than world. Well, there's another Gemara, the kids say in the Bar Mitzvah Maimer, Alpayim Shadna Kadma Torah Le'elam. The Torah was there 2,000 years before the world. And the kid says in the, they know what they're talking about. The kid says in the Maimer that even though there was no time, so what does it mean? Torah is 2,000 years before the world. It means two levels of Aleph Chochma, Aleph Bina. Torah is Chochma and Bina, Seichel, right? And world were created with Midas, Elam Chesed Yibana. So it means Torah is a level of Seichel which is infinitely greater than the world. But Torah is greater than the world. So now the question is, what does it mean, the Aliyah that the Neshama has by coming into the world? You know, Aliyah, Yuv and Alpi Maimer Beire Kadeshim. What we say in davening, Beire Kadeshim. Hashem created Kadeshim, Ishtabach Shimcha La'ad. And they will praise your name forever. Okay? We say this in davening, right? Ken Neshamas Nikr Kadeshim. Who are the Beire Kadeshim? When the Tefillah says, Beire Kadeshim. Who are the Kadeshim? First the Neshamas. Ukmei Sham Mishmein Esri. Ukdeshim B'chol Yom Alucha Sela. What do we say in Ata Kodesh? Ata Kodesh, Shimcha Kodesh. Ukdeshim B'chol Yom Alucha Sela. And the holy ones every day will bless you. Who are the holy ones? The Neshamas, not the body. Shemetchil, I may say the Kedusha Shemalachim. First you say the Kedusha that the Malachim say by the davening. The Malachim say Kodesh, Veifanim V'chai Sakedir say Baruch, El Shem Kodesh, Baruch and Yimlich. And then we say, so in davening it says like this, in Kedusha, you have the Malachim say Kodesh, Baruch and Yimlich. And then what do we say right after that? Ata Kodesh, V'shimcha Kodesh, U'Kadeshim B'chol Yom Alucha Sahur the Kadeshim, the Neshamas, which are even greater than the Malachim that say Kodesh, Baruch and Yimlich. The aim can say the Malmata L'mayla. And the order in davening is from lower to higher. First you say Kedushas HaMalachim, because Malachim have a guf. It says in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe brings on also, Malachim also have a guf. They have a body, but the body, like this, the bodies are created from four elements: fire, air, earth, and water. The guf of Malachim come from fire and ruach, air. There's no tangibility of water and dirt. So Malachim have a body, but it's a spiritual body. Neshamas up there have no body.
In the Alisa, we say Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Is the Neshamot saying Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh?
No, the Malachim.
Malachim, where do you hear?
Nagdishav na Kaneam Siach says Amshal Shmachal Kedusha Kakosa Yad Miyacha. Who's saying V'Kodezel Zeva Amad? Malachim. Or we even in davening we say Shema Malach V'Chol Mekam Malem El Malchus Shmaim Zamizah V'Neistim B'Hau, they give with love. Who is that? That would be first to Malachim. And then they say Kodesh. And then the other Malachim Eifanim Chayzik can say Baruch.
So what is it that say Malachim have two wings and have one leg? If they have no body, how does this...
It's all spiritual bodies. When you say, in Patach Aliyah we say, the Chesed is the right hand of Hashem. What do you mean? Hashem doesn't have a hand. It's a spiritual hand. So the Malachim have a spiritual body. But it's a limitation of the Neshama's level.
So Malachim
Correct.
Malachim said this.
Yes. Malachim are waiting for the Yid. U'kamesh shekasa b'sefer Daniel. V'geval katarshish u'ksiv eis malachim ruch mashas eish leyet. L'chein malachim teivsim makim. Therefore, because they have the spiritual body, malachim take a place. Meaning, sheyesh ma'alach, malach gadol, that's as big as Tav Kushana, 500 years. V'yesh malach b'shlish olam, and there are malach, the Medrash says, malach b'shlish ha'olam omed. A malach stands in a third of the world. Friedrich brings down this two in a moment. There's two opinions what it means. Either it means a malach is a third of the world, or a malach is 3 times the world. B'shlish ha'olam omed is the question, who's the third? The malach of the world. So the malach takes up space. Yeah, either a third of the world or 3 times the world. But that's taking up space. Neshamas don't take up any space. Their body is so great. Again, it's a spiritual body, it's a level. If they have this place, spiritual place, then Yash Bam Zman, because Malcolm and Zman, time and place, are created simultaneously. Therefore, Yeshlam Eish Kavor Lei Mashida. Therefore, they have an established time, like the Malach when he was fighting Yaakov Avinu. He said, I have to go, Shalcheni. So Rashi says, why? Because now it came my time to sing Shira. I'm waiting for the beginning of creation. This now is my hour to say Shira. Let me go. Right? So Yaakov said, I'm not letting you go until you bless me. So he said, they have a set time. Masha'en kein neshamis, ein lam b'chinas manu makim, therefore they're kadeshim. Meaning, kadesh is removed from the level of world of the malachim. In other words, the Friedrich brings down in the Maimer, in Tavshin, that you have a malach is so great, either a third of the world or 3 times the world, and yet it says that when there's 10 Jews, just 10 Jews sitting in a room doing nothing, okay? The Kedusha is so great that a malach platzes, it explodes. A malach can't be in that room with 10 neshamas doing not Torah, just sitting there like golems, eating barbecued food, whatever. Then the malach explodes, platzes in Yiddish. He explodes, there's too much Kedusha for the malach.
Anytime a Jew does the mitzvah, he makes a malach?
Does he create a malach? I don't know. When we were kids, we taught every word you say in davening, you create a malach. And if you skip a word, you remember we used to say that if you say the word incorrectly, you're going to create a crippled malach. Or if you don't, to say if you're going to skip, kids skip, adults also skip. You're going to skip, you're going to leave out the malach. I don't know. It's when you learn Chassidus, it's a whole different concept. Yeah, Yesh Malach Echad Melet, we'd say by Kaporis. Malach Echad Melet, when a Yid doesn't have a mitzvah, they create malachim. A Yid doesn't have hair, God forbid, they create a evil malach. Because, and again, malach has a body and soul, right? So when you create a malach, when a Yid does a mitzvah, there's 2 parts of a mitzvah. There's the act of the mitzvah, and there's the kavanah of the mitzvah. The act of the mitzvah creates the body of the malach. The kavanah of the mitzvah creates the soul of the malach. But again, it's all spiritual. And therefore, when your person sins, like we said, Tzemach Tzedek explains in the mitzvah of tshuva, Tzemach Tzedek explains that when David HaMelech says, Chatasi negdi samid, my sin is always there opposite to me. So he explains, Tzemach Tzedek explains, that when you do an Avera, you create an entity of evil. Now this entity of evil has 2 parts to it, a body and a soul. Like if you eat treif, yeah? The action creates the body. The enjoyment, or else you wouldn't eat it, right? The enjoyment is creating the soul. Even if you're eating it to spite, We discussed Monday night about shkotzim. You do it to spite, that's itself a pleasure, that you're spiting somebody. So when you create, just like when you do a mitzvah, the body of the mitzvah, the action of the mitzvah creates the body of the entity. The kavan of the mitzvah creates the soul of the entity. The same thing, God forbid, when a person does an avera, so the action of the avera creates the body, the enjoyment creates the soul. And therefore, tshuva, to get rid of that entity that you created, you need two parts, regret and verbal confession. Verbal confession is like action. The Gemara says, verbal articulation is like an action. So when you confess, get rid of the body of the sin, and when you regret what you did, it gets rid of the soul of the sin. So there is an entity that we're creating.
So why there are sorrow and Yom Kippur?
The what?
Some people go through sorrow and tough time and so on and so forth, and then there is also Yom Kippur.
That's right.
That's what you're saying.
If it's forgiven, if the teshuvah takes care of it, so which level is Yom Kippur? Yom Kippur,
I think you said what in itself.
In Tanya we learned, when he speaks about kafa kel and chibra kever, okay, various different sins you need, in addition to Gehenim, you need kafa kela, the neshama gets thrown from one side of the place to the next, or chibra kever, which is actually torture, whatever it means, torture in the grave, yeah? Why is Gehenim not enough? So to give you a mashal in this world, because Torah, Gehenim is all cleansing, right? You created something dirty. Understand it in that way. You create something, you got to wash it, you right? Okay. So years ago, when you wash clothing, there was in Yiddish it was called a brettel. Oh, if you remember, Rabbi, in Iran they had that the washing board, and it was a little bit rough, and you would scrape the extra stains. You would scrape it on the thing, and then you put it. Or even now today. Yeah, you rub the collars or whatever, the dirt spots, and then you put it into the machine. Why isn't the machine enough? Because the machine doesn't clean everything. So there's certain avedas that you need, kafa kel and chibra kever, is an additional cleansing process. Or what gets rid of it in this world, or gets rid of Gehenim in this world, is suffering. So if somebody says, if you suffer 5 minutes in this world, you get off a lot of Gehenim. So then you don't look at that suffering as suffering. Then you look at it as something positive. I'm getting off Gehenim. Taking off Gehenim time. So then you look at it differently. In Yiddish there's an expression that's Chol gelebt sein Gehenim in der Welt. The guy already lived his hell in this world. He doesn't need hell up there. He already lived it here. So that's what it is. It is what it is. And he says, okay, Shir Shlema B'chol Yom. Okay. Shir Shlema B'chol Yom Tomid. Therefore it says, there is constantly Kadeshim B'chol Yom Yalucha Selah. Right, what do you mean? Selah eternally. Kamar meyelchu mechayel achoyol v'chol hilach v'aliyah zaydei shir davke. There's a Gemara, kol bali ashir yitzim b'shir v'nechnasa b'shir, whatever. There's a level of shir, which is davening, that makes the neshama higher. V'zeh gam kinei kadeshim lashon rabim. That's why we say kadeshim, if it refers to each neshama, which is say the Kadesh or Kadush or whatever. He said because Lashon Ram there's Kadesh, Ram Gavaya, Mal Gavaya, Adrema Midas. And that's what it says, Yalucha Selah. This is a praise for all times, constantly. Why? Because Malach, which is limited in time and place, because they have a spiritual body, right? And he said, therefore they have time. So therefore their Avodah is based on time. Neshama, which is above time and place, it's Selah. L'chol yem eluch Selah. Constantly. Every day.
The Rabbi said that in Malachim they have, I know there are two fire and air.
Right, that's the body is composed of fire and air.
So they take makom, they don't take makom. There is
Spiritual mocking.
spiritual.
When you learn something, yeah, it takes up your brain. You can't learn something else at the same time.
Right.
Okay? It takes a place in your brain. How much place does it take up? How much? 2 inches? Half an inch? 10 inches? It takes a place, but not the place that we measure. Like we said, a pit that's deep, you measure with feet and inches or miles, right? When you say somebody has a deep head, it doesn't mean it's 20 feet deep.
With the head, no, but when the computer chip, I can tell you exactly.
Not even in the brain, I think there are new, every time you learn something, there are new neurons are created.
Yeah, your brain becomes bigger
It does.
physically.
It does.
That's what it says in the books.
When you learn something,
The Melech told him, we learned by the Melech Hanur, he told us that when they opened Einstein's brain after he died, he said it was talking bigger.
Yes,
No.
got it. So
Sometimes you open you up, there's no brain there.
no, the spiritual makom, that doesn't mean the makom.
I said that.
Yeah.
In Bria, there's man. Or say there's manim at least. There is a concept of time and place in Bria. Because Bria is creation, or Yesh Miyayin. But it's spiritual Yesh Miyayin. It's spiritual time and place. It's figurative speaking. When you say somebody has a generous person, has a big heart. You know, God forbid you have a big heart, your life's in danger. Physical big heart is very dangerous, medically, right? Okay. So what do you mean guy has a big heart? The word big over there doesn't mean inches, feet. Or deep doesn't mean inches or feet. It means a different type of depth and big. But that's not a physical dimension, even though we're using physical dimensions for it.
Because we're thinking four
A malach doesn't go to sleep at night, you know what I mean? That goes into a bed and sleep. Doesn't work that.